Hi, everyone. I'm here with Destinee from South Scribe Creative. She is a copywriter and she helps businesses find their authentic voice through their copy and blog writing. And would you like to talk a little bit more about your business?
Yeah, certainly. So thank you so much for having me on. Really excited to talk with you today. So I started South Scribe Creative, and that is actually my new business name. Originally, I was Marble City Marketing, and under that name, was operating for about a year and a half.
Oh,
And then I just decided to change to South Scribe Creative and focus my efforts more on copywriting than offering a full scope of marketing services.
mm. So did you find that it was just overwhelming with all of the different offerings that you had, or in the beginning you were more drawn to just like all aspects of marketing and you kind of niche down from there?
So when I graduated college, I started working at a PR marketing and advertising firm. And so they offered a little bit of everything. So there I gained experience in all realms of marketing and in PR. So I had this experience, and I just wasn't sure where I wanted to focus. So when I started freelancing, it was on the side of a full-time job. So I started out just by offering all the services just to see what caught on, what people needed, and I did provide many of those services, including like social media, consulting, copywriting, charitable planning, all sorts of work within that realm.
Mhm.
And I quickly realized a couple things. One was that I cannot be a jack of all trades. It is extremely overwhelming as one person. There's a reason why I worked at a PR firm with multiple people and they did all those things, you know? Trying to do that as one person is just too much. And I felt like I wasn't providing the level of service I wanted to provide because I wasn't able to really become an expert in just a couple things. I was trying to be an expert in so many things. And by doing that, I felt like I wasn't an expert in any of them. And then the second thing I found out was that I love copywriting, specifically for websites and blogs. And so this year I said, you know what? That seems to be the service that people need the most. It's the one I enjoy the most. And that is what I'm going to stick with.
Nice. Yeah, I totally understand. I think there are so many people in business out there that are telling business owners that they have to do it all. It's like maybe if there's a team of five people, you can do it all so they all have their own job, but as one person is just too much. And with copywriting, have you always enjoyed writing? Or do you like to read? And
Yeah, I have. So my mom is actually an English and grammar teacher, and so throughout my life, I would go to her classroom even from when I was like 2. So I've always been around just like literary works, and she would be grading essays. And so she was really interested in reading and writing, and I became interested in reading and writing. I used to love essays in school because I knew that I'd get a good grade. Math, not so much. But yeah, so I really enjoyed the writing projects all throughout school. And I, as I transitioned into my career, I realized like as I was working in that PR firm, the projects I enjoyed most were also in writing and not necessarily as much in the social media side of things or other services that they were offering at that time.
I think it's really lovely when we can really integrate or pull back into the things that we love from when we were children or even in general. It comes from a much more authentic space.
Yeah, I think so too. Some of my favorite memories from childhood are like, just sitting on the couch and my mom's reading her book and I'd be reading my chapter book here in elementary or middle school. And I was always that kid that was like top of the accelerated reader list.
Me
Except for there was this one guy who always tried to beat me. His name was Trevor. Trevor, if you're out there. Mm,
too.
I was always in competition with him. So it was fun, friendly competition though.
Yeah. I was the same way. I just devour books. And even when I was a child, I read books all the time. And my dad was just telling me, he's like, you used to read like 2 to 3 books at the same time. Like, I don't do that at all anymore. Like, I can only read one to be fully focused. Yeah, reading is great.
Yeah, I think that definitely transitions when you get a little bit older because you're also reading very different types of books, you know.
Yes.
So I read a lot more professional and personal development now and have recently gotten back into fiction, reading more like thrillers and
Mhm.
mystery books. And that's been really nice, especially over the summer, trying to relax a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. I definitely went through like a personal development spree and read like almost all of the personal development books in the library. It's like,
Mhm.
this might be a bit much. Let's pull
I
it
know.
back.
It
Let's
gets
read
to the
something
point
fun.
like where you're like, okay, I read all these personal development books and yeah, I haven't actually put any of them into action. So maybe I should take a break.
Yeah. Let them become integrated into myself.
Exactly.
Oh. Okay. So, when you're working with clients, how do you help them discover their authentic voice and then have that be portrayed in the copy that you're writing for them?
Yeah, great question. So it depends on the stage of business that the business is in at the time. So if they're just starting out and they're a brand new company, then I noticed with people I work with that sometimes they haven't fully thought through their brand strategy or determined their voice or how they want to come across their audience. And so that's where I start. I work with people. If somebody's in that stage of business, before we even write the first word for their website or any piece of marketing material that they have, I have them go through a workbook that helps them determine their brand voice. And it asks questions about their audience. And it really is meant to help them dive deep into why they started this business, who is it for, you know, what do you want to achieve? All those questions that are so important. And they take a lot of thinking and reflecting to answer. And some people are, I've noticed that they're uncomfortable with that, and I understand because it's hard when you're just like, oh, I just want to do it, I just need this website out there. It's like, okay, well, you have to do these steps first. If you want the rest of your work to be successful, you have to do the work on the front end.
Mhm.
And so that's what I help them with. If it's a brand that's already been established for a while and they have kind of gotten a better idea of their brand voice, but they're really not still like clear completely, then we'd still go through the same steps, but the conversation ends up being a little bit different because we talk about like what's working and what's not working. Whereas those new businesses might not know that just yet, and that's okay. So we do a lot of work with through the workbook and then also talking about it, diving deeper into those questions, and then we start on the copywriting portion of the project.
Mhm. Did you create the workbook yourself?
Yes, I did. And actually, just because I believe it's so important for anybody in business, I've actually created a simplified freebie version of it too, that I have on my website. So anybody that's starting out in their business, they can use that as a guide to help them determine the voice that they should use. And it's not just on your website; it's
Mhm.
also, you know, your social media captions everywhere where you're communicating with your clients or your customers, that voice should be authentic and consistent. So the purpose of that guide is to really help businesses establish that and be able to refer to it when they kind of get a little bit off track or whenever they hire somebody like me who's going to come in and write for them. It's my guide to understand, you know, who they are and what they do and the voice that I should be writing in for them.
Mm. So, do you find that just by knowing that information and sitting and talking with them, how often do you talk with them so that it's easy for you to kind of step into their shoes and write the way you think they would write?
Yeah, so my process starts after the client has booked my services. We do a project kickoff call, and I come in with a list of questions that we talk through. And at that point, they've also filled out a questionnaire for me. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it's important because I am not in their business on a daily basis. So for me to be able to do my job correctly and the best of my abilities, I need them to also be um, committed to the project and to fill out the questionnaire and to answer the questions that I ask in as much detail as they can. It doesn't have to be eloquent. They can, just talk freely. And I will during the conversation pause a lot and just be like waiting and see if they'll tell me more because that usually works and they usually do open up a little bit more and not try to sound so professional. And then from there, I will send them that brand guide and have them fill that out. And then we have another call to dive into that and go through that in more detail. And then I only write the homepage first if I'm writing a website. And that way the client can review that and make sure that we are on the same page about their voice, the tone, you know, and the services that they offer, just to make sure that we are in sync, or if we need to adjust moving forward into the other pages of the website, then we will do so at that time.
That's great. Hmm. I think that's really interesting. I like that you collect a lot of information right at the beginning. And it's useful for everyone too, because you are doing all of the front end work, like you mentioned, so you can portray their voice accurately. And after someone works with you, do you kind of teach them how to be less afraid to show up as themselves when they're writing in general, and like social media and things like that?
That is definitely something that we talk about. And usually, once I've written a website for a client, social media, blogs, all of that gets brought up. And so I do talk to them about the services I offer in those areas.
Mhm.
But then I also talk to them about using that guide that we started with to help them throughout their um, any stage of business. As they get those social media profiles set up, if they do decide to start a blog, it's always something to go back to. Read what you said. Why did you start? Who are you talking to? Just remind yourself of those answers, and that will help you get grounded and reestablish your clarity so you can write those captions and any blog posts that you want to write with a little bit more of an authentic voice because you've reminded yourself of where you started, who you are, who your customers are, and just prepared yourself to take on those tasks.
Do you find that that's a big fear that people have, that they're kind of afraid to show up as themselves because of, I don't know, maybe something they've heard from some giant business coach, or they don't know if they'll be accepted as themselves on social media?
Certainly. So, something I say a lot is if you are trying to make your words speak to everyone, in reality, you're really speaking to no one. Because if you're being too vague and you're scared to show people who you really are and to be authentic, you're really not showing them any part of you. So how are people going to connect to that? People connect to true authenticity, and that's what I try to show brands and companies like that they can portray, and they don't need to be scared to portray that because it is much more realistic and enjoyable to be able to be you and to reach the people that actually want to work with you than it is to try to reach everybody.
Mhm. Yes, I totally agree. And it can be hard, especially in the beginning, because you're quite unsure about everything and everything is so new that we really have to pay attention and not let fear take the wheel and drive us around with what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I also really want my clients to understand that change is inevitable. You don't have to keep the same brand voice forever. If you evolve and your business needs to evolve, that is totally fine. And you can do that. People do that every day. So the way that you are presenting your business now doesn't have to be the way you present your business in 10 years. It can change, and that's fine. We pivot, we re-strategize, like, and we just determine the next step forward. But it's okay to do that. I'd rather my clients do that than to stay in a space that they feel they have to just because that's where they started.
Mm-hmm. Do you kind of advise them then to go through the workbook maybe once a year to see if their values have changed?
That certainly would be a good idea. I think that, that workbook is meant to be a living, breathing document and that people can revisit it at any time.
Mhm.
And it's something that I revisit all the time. I, as a business owner myself, am constantly determining, like, okay, how can I better reach my audience? Do I need to rethink that pain point, and how I'm approaching it? Are my words not reaching them because I'm not fully understanding the problem?
Mm.
Just going back and thinking through, once you have a little bit of data that you can refer to, you can go and see what's working, what's not. Am I reaching my clients through my words? Do I need to reevaluate and change? You can change your strategy, and you should, because if that's what's going to work for you, then trying something new should be the route you go.
Mhm. I totally agree. Pivoting, it can be a scary thing, but it's also often very necessary
Yeah,
if
certainly.
it's not working.
Yeah, that's something that I had to do myself, whenever I was providing multiple marketing services. I had to really think through, like, what do I want? How am I changing? And how can I better serve my customers and clients? And that's why I did decide to change my business name and my services and pivot in a new direction.
Yes, and that is lovely. And you're happier now too, in general. Like you're doing the thing that's more aligned with what you enjoy and like.
Mhm.
And that's
So
just better for everyone.
yeah, I think that imposter syndrome was a big issue for me, like whenever I was trying to do everything, because there were so many people out there specializing in each aspect of the services I offered. So it's like, well, how can I be on their level? I
Mhm.
can't. Realistically, I just can't, because if I am trying to offer too many things, it's just not going to work out. So once I decided to focus on copywriting, which is a service that I enjoy most, I feel most aligned with, that imposter syndrome is slowly, just crept away.
Yes. And that's lovely. It feels so nice. And you're like, I know I'm on the right path. This is all good. I'm less afraid to show up and do these things for people that actually will love my services because I'm being myself, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what advice would you have for someone who's just starting out in business and they have an idea of what they want to do, but they're not sure how to show up as themselves in their business and their copy?
So if that person is a new business owner, I
Mhm.
really think the first step is working through some brand strategy work. And that's something I do on the messaging side, the copy side, but it's important to work with somebody who's an expert in that field. And there are plenty of people that specialize in just that.
Mhm.
So if they haven't established their values, their mission, anything at that point, then I would start out by referring them to somebody who helps coach them to figure that out first.
Mhm.
Because once they have that established, it's so much easier to focus on the rest of it, to determine the messaging that's going to reach their audience. So that's where I would tell them to start. Figure out who you are, figure out who you serve, work with somebody who can really help you dive deep into all aspects of brand strategy, and then branch out into people who are going to help you design that logo based on your brand strategy, help you write that website based on your brand strategy. And maybe that's all the same person,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's not. And that's where, I could come in on the copywriting piece of that, and be a resource after they have gone through that full strategy session and come in and help them fine tune that messaging and the copy portion of their business.
Mhm. Thank you. I think that's great. And being able to understand who you are, and then they can come to you and show that to you. And it makes your job a lot easier. And the same with them. Like what they receive is a lot more aligned with who they are and what they want.
Yeah, I have found that if I am working with a brand new business owner, a lot of times they do ask me questions that are a little bit more suited for a business coach
Mhm.
and somebody that does full brand strategy. And I think that helping them understand that that is not my zone of genius is really important, because I don't want to portray myself as a service provider who can give them the answers to everything in their business.
Mhm.
So I've really started trying to show people like there are other resources for you that you might need to go do that work before you come to me. And I'm okay with that. We
Yeah.
don't have to start this project today. We can start this project in 3 months, after you've gone through these other steps. So I try to make sure they know that I'm not the end all be all, and that there are plenty of people that I work with who can be a piece of this puzzle and really help them get their business established.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree with that. Whenever whenever people come to me like, "Are you a graphic designer too?" I'm like, "Absolutely not."
Right.
No, no. You don't want me to design things for you? I can use Canva, and I use Canva for myself,
Hmm.
but no. And the same thing with copywriting. People will be like, "Oh, I need some help with my website copy." I'm like, "Okay, I can read that for you and proofread it, but I can't be the one who's like driving the ship on what it should say and how it should sound. That's definitely not me."
That is absolutely something that has I've been focusing on trying to resolve, because the web developers I work with say that to me all the time, that people come to them, and I've heard clients who actually are very frustrated too, because they say, "Oh, well, I went to this web development company and I thought I was going to be handed a finished website, and they handed me a framework."
Yes.
And they don't fully understand that just because somebody develops your website doesn't mean that they fill in the content, that
Mhm.
that's actually a separate service. And there are companies that do web development and offer those services, but then there are some that don't.
Oh, yeah.
So trying to figure out how to make it really clear for clients that the distinction between a web developer, a web designer, a copywriter, like you want experts in all of these fields working together for the goal, not
Mhm.
necessarily one person who is going to do it all. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be one person. And
Yeah.
trying to get people to understand it's okay if it's not just one person. You
Mhm.
want people that specialize in all of those areas.
For sure. And like you said before, it can be a different time period. So maybe right in the beginning, you just have your brand and you decide, like, oh, I'll DIY my website. And then longer down the road, you decide to have someone build it for you. And then you decide to hire a copywriter. So in general, that's what I find. Like the clients that I work with, if they do not hire a copywriter, I ask them to have the
Mhm.
copy and also the photos that they want to use. I'll hunt down photos since I like to use Unsplash and things like that. But in general, it's their job because I I'm definitely not that person. That's not me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and that is a good point in making sure that that's really clear, that
Mhm.
that's what they're getting and that will be an expectation for them. So that kind of like gives the client work too. Like this is what you have to give to me to make this like the best project and the best relationship that it can be, that we are both contributing to this work and it's not just all my job to create this thing for you when I know this much about your business and what you're trying to do.
Exactly. Yes. And so I've been working on my own message strategy to make sure that that's really clear to people, because I generally get clients at two different stages when it comes to website copy. Either one, they have just decided to work with a web developer, and that web developer has referred them to me. And
Mhm.
so we are starting on the right foot. We're starting at the right time, because if they have already signed on to have this website developed, they need to start focusing on copy like right then and there.
Mhm.
But I also get clients who say, "Oh, the web developer doesn't do copy. That's fine. I'm gonna take care of it myself." And then they spend a month staring at a blank Word document going, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start." And
Yeah.
then I get a call 2, 3 months later, they've been sitting with a blank website, paying for hosting,
Yeah.
and they say, "I need this done, like, immediately." And I try to explain to them, it doesn't work that way. You
Yeah.
know, it's you don't want me to rush your copy like that. It will not give you the result you're looking for.
Mhm.
I know it's frustrating that you're sitting here with this website that doesn't have anything on it, but that's okay. We can't fix that at this point. We just need to move forward and get this website wrapped up correctly.
Yeah.
So then, and so I'm trying to prevent that moving forward to help clients make that decision early on, whether or not they're going to try to do it themselves or hire a professional.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And also the idea that someone else's urgency is not your emergency. That does not belong to you. 'Cause that's happened to me as well. People need something done right now. And it's like, I mean, if it truly is something like that, there will be a significant upcharge. I can do it. But if you can wait like a couple weeks or something like that, where we can actually fit it in, everything will be okay and it will be much more smooth. Like something is happening that you are definitely feeling like it's an emergency, and that's okay. But we're gonna work through it and it's going to be fine and we'll get it done in like the correct amount of time.
Yeah, something that I'm currently working on is determining timelines, and every project is different. And I
Oh,
know that you can't fit everything into a perfect little box, but trying to be clear with clients about the copywriting process, because a lot of it is rather subjective, especially when it comes to copy edits.
mhm,
So trying to establish a appropriate timeline for when I should have worked to clients, when they should have a response to me.
mhm.
That way the project is streamlined, and doesn't get held up at any point. So knowing, like, as one person, I can only take on a few projects a month that are larger,
Yeah.
and I need to make space for those. So I'm trying to be a little bit more specific with clients about the expectations, not only on my end, but on theirs.
For sure. And that helps a lot. That
Mm.
helps so much. And then you feel like it's not all on you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
everyone is
I
held responsible.
have pushback from business owners on that, who say, well, if you give them too many restrictions or you ask them too many questions up front, they're just going to get frustrated and not work with you. And I did let that deter me for a little bit, but then I got to thinking about it and I was like, you know what? If somebody is not comfortable with working on a very reasonable timeline that I put forth, then it's probably not the right project for me. And I just need to be okay with that.
Yes. The ones that want to rush or disrespect rates or won't do the basic or bare minimum of what you're asking, usually we dodge a bullet. I would say 99% of the time that is the case, that we kind of escape someone that isn't meant to work with us, that we shouldn't even be forcing them into, and they kind of weed themselves out, which is nice. We escape that.
Yeah, and something very interesting when it comes to copywriting is there is such a wide range when it comes to copywriting pricing
Mhm.
out there. And I've had a couple of clients, not many, I have to say, but a couple who, when they get my quote, they say, wow, that's more than I expected. And so I always try to respond with, can you tell me what price range you were expecting and why you were expecting it? What led you to establish that as your expectation?
Uh-huh.
And usually they don't have a good answer. Usually it's, oh, well, I just assumed it would be around this much.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when I dive into the explanation that I don't charge by the word,
Mhm.
because I don't think that I can give a clear word count up front. And I think people want to know what they're budgeting for. So I do project rate on good faith that it's going to stay within the scope of the work. And then I have information there about if we go beyond this is what happens. If I don't do this, if we change and the work lessens, the final invoice will be, deduced by this much. Um, and so to explain to people that it's not just the words on the paper, it's the research, the strategy, all of those aspects go into writing clear, strategic, well-branded, authentic copy.
Mhm.
And it's not just me going and getting out a Word document and just typing for an hour.
Yes. It's much more complex than what it seems like it
Absolutely.
would be. Yeah. So is there anything else that you would like to share? Like, I know that you're going to be launching a new website soon and new offerings.
Yes. So I am launching my new website. It'll be selfscribe.com. And on there, my new services will be a full website package, landing page, blogging, and email sequence writing, as well as email newsletter writing, which are slightly different. One of them has a lot more design to it than the other. So all these services are going to be available with some starting at pricing. But everything I do is customizable. So there is no one shoe fits all approach when it comes to these creative projects. So I just want people to understand that, when they are doing their research for anybody in the creative industry, make sure you know what that price entails when you are looking at it, and don't just compare the bottom line,
Mhm.
because sometimes you're not comparing apples to apples. Uh,
Mhm.
but other than that, just want people to know that copywriting is a creative collaborative process, and it takes the copywriter, the developer, and the client all working together to create a successful finished product. And
Mhm.
so making sure that you really connect with the people you work with is crucial, because you want to enjoy the process too.
Yes. Oh, and also, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram right now as Destinee Rochely, and that's Roschli. And I also will be launching that website, as you mentioned, which is southscribe.com.
Awesome. And I will link all of these in the show notes so they can find you and chat with you.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.